Recording in progress. Hopefully everybody's cool with that. Okay, so this is Side Jug for August. Like Josh said, we're all getting ready for back to school. Let me share my screen quick. We have a couple intro slides we like to give when we start these. If I can figure out how to share my screen. Share this screen. Here we go. You guys see a slideshow that says welcome to Side Jug. Cool. All right. So for those that haven't been here, this is SideJug, Central Iowa Java Users Group. We this month are sponsored by JetBrains. This is volunteer led, so we would love, if you're interested in helping us out, we can always use the help. But this is generally for developers in Central Iowa, but we do virtual. So we do virtual probably we try to do like 3 months virtual, and then like every third or fourth month we do an in-person thing in Central Iowa. So far it's been working for us pretty well. No real big objectives. We just like people that like to learn and like to teach and like to hang out and have a good time and network a little bit. So if you're interested in learning, we'd love to have you here. Also, can you speak at SideJug? Absolutely. We would love to have you here. Anything from 5 to 10 minutes if you want to do lightning talks, if you want to do something cool, whatever you're interested in or passionate about teaching, we would love to talk to you about that. We do have a Sessionize link. So if you'd like to go to Sessionize/Central Iowa Java Users Group, you can fill out a little bit of info there. We'll get your topic and we'll be in contact with you to see what it looks like to get you on the schedule. Next, this is special or different for this month. Next month, like a month from today, if you're in Des Moines or you want to travel to Des Moines, there's a new like user group party that's happening called Tech DSM Party. Last I checked, I think we've sold 130 tickets. It's free, but we've sold 130 tickets to this. It's gonna be downtown Thursday, September 26th from 5 to 8 at the River Center, downtown Des Moines. They've got a whole bunch of swag, open bar, hors d'oeuvres. They've got a band playing as well. So it should be a good time to kind of get together. If you want to scan the QR code, you can scan that and go get tickets at Eventbrite, or you can follow them on social, on like Twitter or LinkedIn. There's the Tech DSM Party page. And that's just also going to say for our next month's user group, since this kind of falls around the same time that we would usually do it, we're just going to do kind of skip SideJug for next month and do just in person at Tech DSM Party. So I hope to see you guys there if you're in the Des Moines area. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me too. We can talk about that. And then at the end, we are sponsored, thankfully, by JetBrains. Will give us a free license to one of their IDEs every month. So you don't have to have IntelliJ. You can get any of that, ReSharper, or Writer, or WebStorm, or whatever your favorite IntelliJ or JetBrains license is. If you're hanging around at the end, we'll raffle that off after Josh's talk. And with that, Josh, the floor is yours, man.
Cool. So I'm going to share. Can everyone see my slides?
Yep. Kotlin for Cloud. Yep.
Yeah. So I get it has a lot of LT branding on it, and I normally would take that off for a user jug conference, but I used these slides last week for a similar talk. So yeah, let's dive into it. So Kotlin, we're going to talk a little bit about Kotlin, then some things I've set up on my machine, and then I'm going to go through some demos of creating a serverless API. Then we'll create a Fargate app, and then I'll show you some machine learning services with AWS and Kotlin. So we'll dive into a few things. If you have questions, raise your hand, show your face. I know a lot of folks aren't on camera, which is fine, but then I can't tell if my dumb jokes don't land. So, So why I like Kotlin. I've been a Java developer now going on probably close to 20 years or more. My first language in college, way back when, was Java. I really enjoy working though in Kotlin. It's statically typed like Java. It runs on the JVM like Java. However, there's a lot less boilerplate code than Java. There's some libraries like Lombok that you can use with Java to make it less boilerplate, but they just come out of the box with Kotlin. Spring now sees Kotlin as a first-class citizen. So if you're writing in Spring, you go to your start.spring.io. You can click on Kotlin and create a project right there in Kotlin as opposed to Java. Recently, Google announced at Kotlin Conf that they're moving away from Java and toward Kotlin. So Kotlin is becoming one of the more premier languages, I would say, on the JVM. And then there's infrastructure as code providers, such as we're going to dive into a little bit of AWS CDK, but Pulumi and others also support Java, which you can call Java from Kotlin. So therefore, you can write your infrastructure in Kotlin. So, so on my machine, I have the AWS CLI. I'm using IntelliJ, using Java 21, Node JS 20, because that's the LTS version. And then I have the AWS CDK installed for these examples. So is anyone familiar with the Amazon AWS CDK?
Use it a little bit, like toy projects, but I don't think I've used it anything real.
Okay. Looks like Kelly raised a hand. So with the AWS CDK, you write your code in a known language, whether it be TypeScript, Java, C#, Go, Python, and then it converts it into CloudFormation. I can't, Kelly, oh, I didn't know if Kelly had a question or was just.
I just said I use it a lot, so I think they're
okay. So what you do is you write your code in a language like an imperative language, and then it converts it into a CloudFormation stack. And then that CloudFormation stack is deployed to AWS. So the benefit of it is really you could build your application in your infrastructure's code in the same language, which is nice. The way the CDK works at the high levels, you have an application, and then within that you have stacks, and then inside that you use constructs. So the composition of an application is multiple. It could be one-to-many stacks, and then within there, one-to-many constructs. So the CDK has a few commands. If you're familiar with Terraform, you can do things like in Terraform, you can do Terraform apply, which would deploy your code, or Terraform plan, which is similar to CDK diff, which will show you the differences and what it's going to do. The CDK also has CDK synth, which takes your code and converts it into CloudFormation. So if you really want to see all the nastiness that is CloudFormation, you're able to see that, as well as check to make sure your CDK code is valid. Because if it won't synth, it's not valid code. So I'll pause there for a quick second. Are there any questions so far? None? We'll get into it. Okay. So I am going to stop share, and I'll share my other screen here. Share. So what I've got here is, everyone probably on this call is familiar with IntelliJ. This is basically a handler written in, it's a Lambda. So if you're familiar with AWS, it's an AWS Lambda handler, and this is written in Kotlin. And I've integrated this with an API gateway. So what I'll be able to do is send a GET request to this, and then we will be able to see the response I am here. Pretty simple. again, if you're familiar with Kotlin, it is a statically typed language. So we get these nice types here as well. Another reason I like it. If you're familiar with TypeScript, it does the same thing, except in my mind, and I'm probably very biased, but the TypeScript ecosystem still seems a little wonky to me, where you're having to deal with TS config flags and libraries that may or may not be compatible with the S6 modules and a whole bunch of other things. So I really do like writing code in Kotlin because you are given that Java ecosystem. So what I've got here is a Lambda. And then in here, I also have, this is my CDK folder. And so in here, I have the high level application and I give it an ID, which correlates to the stack name. And then within that stack, I've got a few constructs. I've got a Lambda, and I'm pointing to a jar file, which I will build from my code here. And then I'm creating an API gateway. I'm integrating that function. And then I'm adding a route called hello, and then tying that to the stage and API gateway. So through this, I'm able to deploy and build my whole application using both Kotlin code for the application code as well as Kotlin for the infrastructure. So I can do a CDK synth. And here's all the nasty cloud formation. So it is taking that code and turning it into cloud formation. We can see things like the API gateway, the protocol, the integration type. So the CDK is in effect taking this, converting it to cloud formation. Then I can do something like CDK diff, see what's different between my my current deployment and what's out there. So I must have already had this deployed. We can do CDK deploy. Let it run and it's deployed. So if I go out to Chrome, log off of this, do console, log off of this console, up in here to the account that I want to use. Yeah, do not log in as root user. This is my personal account. This is not something I would recommend. This is a throwaway account, which I will destroy after this.
If you're wanting to share a Chrome window or something, we're just seeing IntelliJ. So I don't know.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to call you out if you were like typing in a password in the
No, not at all.
or something.
Yeah, let me share. I'll just share the whole desktop, make it easier. I thought that's what I was doing. So
there we go.
Yeah. So again, do not recommend. Oops, I used the wrong password. Got too many passwords. Again, do not recommend using the root user. However, it's just a throwaway account. So in here, if I go into API gateway, we can see I have an API with just a get method under hello. And I can go into the stages, and I created a Josh stage. And I can do hello and have it evoke it. So one thing that's nice too that Amazon released recently, which I want to talk about a little bit, is Snap Start. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Snap Start, but it basically allows your lambdas to, when they load them up, serialize them to disk, and then if you hit them again, it hits that serialized version. So you lose it. You don't have a lot of the wait time you would for a Java Lambda. So in this project, I've done that as well. I just include this and I get that nice feature. So again, it's pretty quick for an API written in Java or a JVM language running in Kotlin, and then you get up the benefits of that strong typing and the Java ecosystem, and it's serverless, so it's pretty cheap to run. Any questions?
Have you, I think one of the benefits I've heard, I haven't used CDK too much, but one of the benefits I've heard of it is that you can actually write tests against it. Does Kotlin have support for, I guess it's already just code, so you could just write unit, like normal
Yep.
unit tests.
There's a CDK, there's some constructs that let you invoke a stack and see what got created from that stack using their testing.
That's cool.
So that's kind of cool. The other thing that's really nice about the CDK is, I don't know if anyone's heard of JSII, but the CDK is written in JSII. So what you do is you write your code in TypeScript, and then you tell it which languages you want to support, and then it will transpile it into, or it creates a shim layer basically. So I can then use that CDK code in Java, Go, Python, C#, because I just say, here's the JSI and the languages I want to support. I just write once and can use it in all those languages. So one thing that's really nice is you can build your own constructs and share them, write them in one language in TypeScript, and then share those across your organization and build like common libraries for building infrastructure.
Okay.
Similar to Terraform modules, if you're
That's what I was just gonna ask. Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Huh. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty slick if you're in the AWS ecosystem.
Huh.
So that's basically standing up an API using Kotlin and serverless API using Lambda. The next thing I wanted to show you or show the group was a little more complicated example. And this example uses a Spring Boot app that I'm running in Fargate. So if you're not familiar with Fargate, Fargate is AWS's serverless, where you're not managing servers but can deploy Docker containers. So what you're able to do, what I've got here in this project is I've got a Fargate API, just a little controller. And again, I'm using Kotlin here. And another reason I really like Kotlin is it's way less verbose than Java. You can see here's a function, a get mapping. I return hello world. I don't need public, it's very compact language. Again, I created this using the start.spring Spring Starter for Spring Boot. Standard Spring Boot app, again running in Kotlin. So what I've done is I've got a Docker file here. You could use you could either use a Docker file, or with Spring 3, it does have the ability, if you're familiar with it, it does have the ability to build a boot image for you. I created a Docker file though, just to show another way to do it. I have been at organizations that have had to modify these right? They need to install certificates and other things to be compliant with their Docker images, or they need to do a base image from somewhere, that's organizationally approved or whatever. So I got a Docker file. I build it using Docker, and then I push it to I push it to ECR, which is Amazon's Elastic Container Registry. And then similar, I have a stack here and an app. So I'm going to invoke my app or my stack from my app. And then in my stack, I'm making use of some things from Amazon, which are kind of nice in the CDK. So one is a lot of organizations, they build your networking for you and you don't have access to build VPCs. So with the CDK, I'm able to look up a VPC and pass in some properties. I'm going to show you how this works because it's kind of slick. Then I create a ECS cluster. Then I connect to a ECR repository. I probably didn't need to create these security groups. I was doing some testing, but you can create your own security groups and pass those in. Again, this is not best practice. I would not open all these ports. This was me testing something. But what you would do is Amazon has created these high level constructs. They call them, I don't know what they call them. I think they're like third level constructs. At the bottom, you have constructs that are very close to CloudFormation. In the middle, you have things like security groups, lambdas, functions, but then they've composed these larger ones into patterns where they're for things that you commonly would do. So when I create this application load balancer Fargate service, it's also creating a load balancer, tying it together, doing the health checks, building a target group. So I don't have to build all that stuff myself. I can just say I need a Fargate service that's got an application load balancer. And here I just pass it the image, tell it what port to expose, tell it what subnets to be, and then give it a load balancer name. And then it scaffolds and builds all that for me. So if I do CDK synth, yes, I did mean synth. CDK synth here. And I did expect it to fail. So the reason it failed is because I need to pass in an environment. So in this case, I wanted to show another feature of the CDK. You may be deploying your application to multiple environments, and I didn't want to hard code these subnets or these availability zones or this VPC ID. I may not want to hard code this ARN. So any of these things I want to pass in as environment variables or per environment. And so what I did was I created this simple object here in Kotlin where I pass in an environment, and then when the environment is dev, I return these values. So I could then say, if it's UAT, return these values or return, another set. Again, this is all Kotlin. You can see it's using the when. The other thing Kotlin supports is data classes. So I'm not having to create a bunch of getters and setters. I'm not having to use Lombok. I can just say I need a data class, and these are the attributes. And so in my app itself, what I do is I say, okay, I'm using this account here, and I'm building it, and I'm passing in these Fargate app props. And what I might want to do is pass these in too. Eventually, you probably wouldn't want to hard code these, but I'm passing as the last parameter these Fargate app props, which I'm getting from my context. So when I run CDK and do CDK synth, I can do /context, and then say I'm going to have a key called environment, and then have that be dev. So what that does, it takes the environment key down here, turns it into a string over here, and then I'm telling my resolver I'm passing in that context. Now, this probably, in all fairness, should be renamed environment here, because what I'm really doing is I'm using this and grabbing the environment that I'm passing in that key. So now when I run my CDK synth, it's specific to that environment. And we can see that the CDK creates a lot more stuff here. We've got security groups. We got a load balancer, another security group, some ingress rules, a listener for the load balancer, the target group, some roles. So all this stuff I didn't have to do. I just told it I needed a load balanced Fargate app. So if I do, and I've already deployed this, but if I do CDK deploy context environment equals dev, I probably spelled something wrong.
You spelled deploy wrong. You did deploy.
Yep.
There you go. Nope.
I don't have the I guess the chat GPT for my crappy code.
Yeah.
So if I do this, it's going to synth it and it's going to deploy. It does take a while to deploy Fargate stuff, so there are no changes. But similarly, I can go into the console here and show you in my Elastic Load Balancer. We'll just go into EC2 because it's in there. We'll just show you the load balancer. We have a load balancer that was created. Screen sharing things in my way. I can hit my load balancer, and then what did I name my get in my application? We named it Josh, so I'll pass in Josh. And there's my hello world. So there's a Kotlin-based Spring Boot application running in AWS with all Kotlin infrastructure. The next thing I wanted to show, I want to talk about was, and I'll share my other screen for a sec. We'll share this. So what I wanted to talk about was, oops. I'm going to show some AWS ML services. So if you're not familiar, Amazon released their Kotlin CDK as well. So now, or SDK. So now, as supporting Java, TypeScript, C#, they also support, Amazon supports Kotlin as an SDK language as well. So you can write Kotlin code now and interact with AWS's ML services using their SDK, and it's very simple. And the code is very terse or very short because you don't need, it's not written in Java. So I'm going to give some examples. I'm going to show AWS recognition. I'll show you comprehend, and I'll show you transcribe. So let's share my other screen. And we'll go back here and we will open my ML project. Okay, we'll start with recognition. Is anyone familiar with recognition?
No.
So what recognition does is you take a picture and it can tell you everything that's in the picture. So I have got a picture here of camping. I wanted to find something with lots of stuff in it. Then I figured it was summertime and people are probably camping. Labor Day's coming up, right? So in here, I've got.
You might want to share your other screen too. Oh, we're seeing your slides right now. If you're
Oh, you are? I thought I
Yeah.
switched it. Sorry.
Yeah,
You
you're
can
good.
click the little button at the bottom. So I have my camping photo, got lots of stuff in it. So here this is using the Kotlin SDK from Amazon. So you can see it's got Kotlin in here. And what I'm doing is I'm calling the find labels or the detect labels function from recognition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up a file, which is an image. I'm going to convert it to the image type that recognition AP SDK requires. And then I'm going to pass that image in and it should give me a list of everything it found. So I will run my little test here on my camping JPEG. And here is everything it found in the confidence.
That's pretty cool.
So very easily, I'm able to do some AI ML work without much code. I'm literally just passing in a picture and saying, tell me what's in the picture.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. Huh.
Any questions?
How do you like the SDK generally? Like, does it feel like it's Kotlin style?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes I feel like they just boilerplate them on, and they're just like generating.
Yeah, it feels very Kotlin-y.
Oh, good.
With its
Cool.
it's using Kotlin's DSL. So you're
Okay.
using a DSL here.
That's cool.
So I'm not doing like builder dot blah blah blah.
Right.
Blah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing that in the infrastructure as code that was based on Kotlin, that was based on Java. There is an open request with the CDK folks to transpile it to Kotlin. So I know they have that open request.
That's
Fingers crossed they announce it this year.
It's already small. I mean, whatever you showed earlier was small enough anyway, so it's not the end of the world, but it's nice when it all looks the same.
Yeah. So this is all, and you can see this is based on coroutines. So if you're familiar with Kotlin coroutines, all these calls are within coroutine scope. So it's pretty slick. So you could fire off 10,000 of these suckers or whatever, and if you so desired, and scan all those images. Another service they have is Comprehend. This does sentiment analysis, so I can pass in text and I can say, is it positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? What's the sentiment? So here I've got some positive customer text. Thanks for all you do. You're great, blah, blah, blah. You provide the best service. Here I've got the US Constitution, which is pretty dry, but it's important. And then I've got here an angry customer, right? So what I can do with Comprehend is I can have it come back with the sentiment score. Is it positive? Is it negative? Whatnot. So in here, I just wrote a simple test and I'm reading the Constitution for this first one. And I'm saying, what do you think that is? So it came back as 85% neutral. It's a little positive, not very negative.
That's cool.
I pass in the ticked off customer. I get, yeah, they're pretty ticked off.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I pass in the final one, which is the positive one. And I get pretty positive. So very quickly, I'm able to do sentiment analysis on a large amount of text very easily using very little code. The last service I want to talk about is transcribe. So I don't know if you're familiar with transcribe. But what transcribe does is it takes speech and converts it to text. So what I've done here, I'll go back into my AWS console and my S3 bucket. And I have, those are the wrong region. So, well, no, I guess it shows all of them. Oh, I'll use this one since this is what I used before. Then I don't have to change anything. But I have Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, which, if you're not familiar with it, big speech on the. So I have that speech. And so I put it in a bucket, an input bucket. And then in here, I have an output bucket. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these objects real quick. And so now my bucket's empty. If I go into the transcribe service, we'll see I had a, oh, I guess I deleted the job, which is good. Well, let's check. I didn't delete it. Yeah. So what I'm able to do now in my code is I'm going to create a transition job request. I'm going to pass in the I Have a Dream speech. I'm going to give it an output bucket, tell it the format. And I really don't like this because I think Amazon could do better, but I have to tell it the sample rate, which I really don't like because if I put in the wrong one, it tells me it's wrong. So if you know it, why don't you just do it yourself? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what's wrong. Okay, fine. Don't. So I'm just going to call transcribe here, start this test. And what that does is that kicks off a transcription job. I must have put it in a different region. There it is. So it's running right now. It's running the I Have a Dream speech through. It's in progress. It doesn't take that long, but that speech is like 15 minutes or so. So it should finish any second here. There is a way to do real-time transcription as well, where you can have it process audio coming in. So if you have streaming audio, you can have it right out on the screen, which is pretty simple to do. It's just you're dealing with streams, and so you're constantly having to deal with pointers, and the example is a little more complicated, but you are able to do real-time transcription. So I can hit start streaming and start talking and it'll. So the job's complete. So if I go into S3 now, I can see in my output, we will open this file here. You can see I've done this times. So we'll open it with Visual Studio Code. And in here, we can see, here's the transcript. And then what it does, similar, it gives a confidence score on each piece of the text.
Like each word, how confident it is in each word.
Yep.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, I see it. I have the
So then it shows you where it started and stopped
Oh,
within
wow.
the.
Huh.
So it goes through, and so you can tell how confident it is. Like you could look for, if there's any confidences below maybe 80%, you would drop them or whatever you wanted to do. But you could take call center calls, transcribe them like this, and then run them through comprehend and see if you have a lot of pissed off customers. Pretty simple.
Yeah, you can totally chain all that.
Yeah, so you just chain it together using Kotlin coroutines. You can push a ton through.
Yeah.
As long as you're willing to pay the AWS bill.
Yeah, that's
Or tell Matt to pay it. I'm just kidding.
yeah, it's slick though. That's impressive how quick that. I mean, for how little code you wrote,
Yeah, so
be able to do that stuff. So that's fun.
Yeah, very little code, and you can submit to these. That's really what it takes. The transcribe takes a request, and this is the request. So pretty simple. To be honest, that's basically what I had. Showing a couple services, showing some cool things you could do. Like I said, I was really stoked when they released this SDK in Kotlin, because now you can interact with it really easily.
Yeah. That's nice. I think that the one thing that like I wanted to call out that I enjoyed what you showed here was just that everything's in the same language. I do a lot of like Java, and then it's Terraform, and or it's you're writing YAML, and this is just it's all. It'd be nice to just have your headspace in one language the whole time.
Yeah.
Really nice.
You could also do the same thing with Palami. So if you're multi-cloud and you want to deploy to Azure and you're using Palami, you can use the Palami Java. You write it in Kotlin and write code in Kotlin too. So it works the same way.
That's super cool.
So here's some resources. Since you're recording this, I'll leave that up for a sec. If you can see. And then there's my contact info if anyone has any questions.
Oh, that was great, man.
Any other questions?
One question. In terms of your toolkit, like, is the Kotlin ecosystem catching up to what Java has? Like, if you think about logging and Spring Boot and all those fun stuff.
Well, I mean, now that it's a first-class citizen for Spring Boot, so I mean,
right?
You're right there. And like I mentioned at the beginning, Google announced that they're migrating away from Java and moving even their server side to Kotlin. So, it's great if you're working at it's someone that, or you're working on a legacy code base. It's a lot of Java, and you want to migrate it slowly to a more modern language. It's great for that too.
Nice.
Because that lets you can have Kotlin living alongside your Java code, right?
Oh yeah, I can create another folder here for
Crazy
Java and call them back and forth and
just live together. Yeah.
Yep. And so I slowly can move my code base to Kotlin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the language. And they just released version 2.0 recently, and today 2.0.20 came out with some nice new features. So they're iterating on it pretty quickly.
That's
nice.
cool.
Do they have like a set cadence that they want to hit with their releases, or?
Well, they used to be really quick, but they slowed down because they rewrote the front end compiler.
Oh,
So if you're familiar with compiler design, the front end is the piece that parses all of this. So they rewrote the front end so that they can add language features. They felt like the front end had kind of gotten bogged down and they wanted to clean it up a lot. So now they've rewritten it and now they're able to iterate and add language features.
Pretty cool.
So like there's several new features around class data classes and companion. I haven't read all the release notes, but
Mhm. And when it comes to having both Java and Kotlin in your code base, do you need to follow a certain rule where Kotlin can call Java, but Java cannot call Kotlin or anything like that?
For Java to call Kotlin, I think you have to add an annotation on the top of the Kotlin and say that it's like JVM interoperable.
Hmm.
So you would go start converting to Kotlin versus trying the
Okay.
and Kotlin, Gradle Gradle is built based on Kotlin too now. So if you're familiar with Gradle, you can have your Gradle files be Kotlin. So it's a Kotlin
Wow.
script. And so here's all I said was I needed Kotlin for the JVM and go get these Kotlin libraries.
Oh, okay. Can you share your screen on that one?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Zoom is not
Zoom is not, I wish
It's
there was like a keystroke for switch.
right. Yeah. But I'm not gonna diss them while we're recording. So we love you, Zoom.
Oh, you can. So and you can just on my presentation skills too. So, but yeah, it's the Gradle scripts are now written in Kotlin, as you can see here.
Huh.
And so very easily I can.
Oh, because it used to be Groovy, right?
Right now they're Kotlin.
Wow. So Kotlin has taken over the world.
you can write it for everything. That is
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, that'd be handy. You don't have to learn a new thing. You just kind of use it for everything. That's
Well,
kind of
and
JavaScripty. I don't know.
yeah, I really like it because it's so concise and it looks a lot like TypeScript and Swift. So
Mhm.
all these languages are starting to be, where you have your type after and a colon. That's a TypeScript, Swift, Kotlin, does that. This is those three languages too. It's very.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you get really into Kotlin, the streams and the collections are so much easier because you can create an array and do dot for each dot instead of
Yeah.
streams collect and stream, so
A lot of cool stuff.
Any pet peeves or rough edges with Kotlin that you found?
Pet peeves. Going to the so using the CDK like I showed before, like in this Lambda function or Lambda example, you're underneath here, you are using the Java builder. So that was a little bit of a pet peeve because I'm having to know where to, when I do this, I'm not getting Kotlin code, I'm going back to Java code and having to figure that out, like how that relates a little bit.
And that's because Lambda itself treats it as Java, right?
Well,
or is
because
it
the CDK treats it as Java, yeah. So underneath here, this is all Java code. And so you kind of have to figure out like, oh, Java, I need a function.build. And then once I got in the swing of it, it was easy, but there was some of that. I really haven't found too many things that I don't like about it. There are some frameworks for it that I don't know how well with Kotlin they will take off, but there's a framework called Ktor. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's basically for developing REST and APIs. You can even do GraphQL with it. It's a little more lightweight than Spring, but it doesn't feel like it has the documentation or the ecosystem yet. So There's also Kotlin has their own ORM called Exposed. It's nice. It's very Kotlin-y like this.
Mhm.
But if you're doing Spring, you'd probably use JPA or Spring, JDBC templates or whatever. So I don't know that like you kind of need to pick. We're almost in that phase we were with Java 15 years ago or 10 years ago, where which function, which ecosystem am I going to use with it, or which frameworks?
Thanks. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions for Josh?
All right.
Sweet.
Well, it's good seeing everyone.
I'm gonna share. If you want to hang around, let me. I can get back.
I'll stop sharing.
I've got a JetBrains ID to get a license to give away. Look at this bad boy. I think this is everybody that is not on the side joke board. That's here. So I'm gonna roll this thing, and whoever wins, maybe you can shoot me a message on here, and I'll get you an email. Kelly. Ding 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 ding. Unless it matches.
Kelly.
Woo woo! Look at that. There's even confetti. Congratulations. If you want the license, can you like shoot me a message with your email, and then I'll email it your way. Or I could just show everybody the code right now, and if you get it first, no, I don't. Other than that, I don't think we have a whole heck of a lot left. Let me see if I can find Zoom wherever it went. Kelly will message me. All right. You're the champ. All right. Well, I think that's it, folks.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Josh. That was really good. I learned a lot.
Okay, good. See ya. It was good seeing everyone.
Yeah, see ya.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yep.